is Demo Donna here with Sparkle and Sprinkle, and I have another technique of the week for you. And this week I'm going to do something a little bit different. I am going to do a little role play. I'm going to pretend I am at a scrapbook expo demoing for you, and you just came up to me and you said, "Hey, Demo Donna, what's going on with this heat embossing thing? I'm new to the scene, or I'd like to learn some new tricks. I've been doing this for a while. What is up your sleeves, Sparkle and Sprinkle?" So let me show you. So first, a little quick run through for the beginner. So if you're a pro, you can just fast forward, move until you see my hands, and then you know that I'm actually doing something. So really quick, your basics. You are gonna need a heat tool. So I get asked at least 2 or 3 times per expo because we have a range of people from the experts to the newbies. So do I need a heat tool? Can I just use my blow dryer? The answer is no, don't use a blow dryer. You need a heat tool. This is more heat and less blow. If you want to sit there for 45 minutes to try to heat boss one stamp design, then feel free to try a blow dryer. But we here at Sparkle and Sprinkle know what works. You need a heat tool. Borrow your friends if you want to try it out first. So, or we have them available, of course. The next thing you need is your Versamark. So the Versamark is an awesome ink pad. It's a watermark. It stays wet longer. It's super cool. It's clear. Basically, if you have a stamping friend, they probably have one, or you have one, and it's very reliable. You re-ink it about once a year. I have the re-inker. I love it, and I use that for other techniques, which I will either show you later in the video, or we can do another technique of the week. So the next item, of course, is your stamp. And I am so happy. I just got this stamp set yesterday. And this is one of my favorites. If you have seen me at the Scrapbook Expo, you have definitely seen me use the feather stamp. I am obsessed with it, and I'm going to be doing today's technique with that. The next item, of course, is your embossing powder. So Sparkle and Sprinkle has over 300 embossing powders, people. So that is so awesome because we know you guys all want something different. So we have a range of embossing powders from opaque to transparent, semi-transparent. We also have ones with glitter, without glitter, with a glossy finish, with a matte finish that have, let's see, a little shimmer in them. There is so much. Ooh, marble, we have a marbleized, then we have special effects, glow in the dark, detail powders. The list goes on and on and on. So it is so exciting, and today I'm going to just tap into a little bit of that. And with our embossing powders, it says EP right there. That means I'm an embossing powder, not a glitter. You need to heat me, people. Heat me, heat me. So check out your embossing powders. Make sure it says EP, because that's definitely a question we get too. I've been heating it, and it's not melting. And then I say, does it say G on it or EP? And sometimes they come back with the G. So check that out. Next, you're going to need your tweezers. These are awesome. Absolutely love them. And what's great is you don't have to hold anything down if you're, heat embossing. You could focus on one thing, which is your heat tool and not your tweezer tool. So I don't use the tweezers all the time, but I definitely use them when I have a tiny little piece of paper that I need to heat emboss. You want to save your precious little finger tools. Remember, we're going to need those. So the next item is your static free bag. Now this is super important when you're doing very contrasting colors. For instance, I am taking a white piece of cardstock and I'm going to be embossing with black embossing powder. Now this is super important because you are going to lay this over your paper, tap off any excess dust, stamp with your Versamark, throw on your embossing powder and heat set, and that is going to help protect with all those little flyaways that you get when you're sometimes embossing. So this is definitely a tool that helps with that. So another must-have is your coffee filter. Ditch all those trays, especially for embossing or when using stuff with glitter, embossing, or mica powders, or really fine shimmers, because that's something else you just need to clean up. So the great thing about using embossing powders is I use one like for the full day when I'm demoing, and then I can toss it. So it's a simple thing. You just fold it into a taco just like this, sprinkle all the extra embossing powder back into your jar, and you're good to go. So there is a rundown of all the things you're going to need for some basic embossing, and now I'm going to get into how that looks, how it works, and then we're going to do some more advanced steps towards the end. Okay, so I'm going to start with a piece of cardstock here, and I'm going to take my static free bag. Now if it ends up putting a lot of the powder on it, you can just go ahead and give that a little flick, because you don't want to pour that powder back into your embossing powder. That would be a big no-no. So after I do that, I'm going to take my stamp here on my Versamark pad. I'm going to go ahead and ink that up. This is a pretty old pad, so it's not super juicy. So I did apply a good amount of pressure. If yours is really juicy, you can just like tap it lightly across the top and that'll be enough for you. All right, and go ahead and stamp my design. These are some of my favorite acrylic blocks because you can see through them and they have the grid. So if you're using words, it's very easy to locate. All right, so now I have my beautiful feather stamp design on here. Like I said, the Versamark is clear so you can't see it. And now I am going to be using a metallic embossing powder. This is Antiquities, really, really pretty. And I'm going to use a metallic so you guys can see on the video, especially if you've never embossed before, you can see how it goes from this powder to a beautiful glossy finish. Now here, a little bit of my stamp image stamped onto my card as well. All you have to do to get rid of that is take just a dry paintbrush and wipe it off. And do that before you heat set. If you do that before you heat set and then you go and heat set, you don't have to worry about it melting permanently onto your page. So now I'm going to heat it and I'm going to show you guys up and close how cool it is when it melts. So see the difference right away. You could see this side is embossed now and melted, and this is still super grainy. You see that? So that is embossed and grainy. And another trick when heat embossing is to hold your heat gun nice and straight and steady and melt up your design. Don't sit here and fan it and shake it, because if you do that, sorry, my heat gun's a little on the end of its life cycle, but if you do that, you don't really know where you've heated. You've got mix match places. Heat has been unevenly distributed. If you just go and you follow in a line and you follow the melt up your stamp design, it's easy to know where you started and where you need to finish. Also, another technique, another tip is to heat away from you. So I am not going to melt my fingers because the heat is moving away from me. So those are all really important tips to keep in your back pocket. And that, my friends, is just the simple basics. And look at how beautiful that embossing powder is on white cardstock and black cardstock. So that's Antiquities, and that is a metallic, and that is just gorgeous. So if you're a beginning stamper and embosser, this is a really easy way to create all your own background pages. Am I really doing it out of the scene? There you go. Sorry. Okay, so moving on. I am now going to show you with my same feather design how to do batik embossing. And this is so much fun, and I demo this over and over and over again at the trade shows. And I'm basically going to take my little static bag, give it a little tap, take my Versamark and my feather stamp again, and I am going to do this really fun toss pattern. Like I said, this is great for scrapbookers too that have never stamped and want to do some fun background pages. This is a great way to start. Or let's say you have like a birthday page layout and you want to do a toss of cupcakes. Really fun. So I am just taking my same stamp and doing a little stamp design all over. So next I'm going to be using my 3 colors here. I'm going to be using a seafoam embossing powder, which is really, really fun. I've been obsessed with that forever. Red apple and black. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my embossing powder and I am just going to sprinkle a little here, a little there on top of my feathers. And then the trick with this technique is the flip. So if you flip it, you then are not pouring the embossing powder down. So that is color number 1. And now color number 2, I'm going to be doing some of my red apple, which I absolutely love. And this is from our Detail embossing powder collection, which is really pretty. This and the blue in that collection are some of my favorites. So once again, flip. So after you do your 2 flips, my last step here with the black is going to be a full coverage. So I want to make sure that all of my stamps that I put down are going to be covered. And then you can just simply do this. The nice thing about having the filter too is I can obviously get all of my embossing powder back in my jar by just tacoing the filter like I mentioned to you guys. Okay, so, oh look, Donna's got a big fingerprint right there because I like to stick my fingers in my Versamark and then stick it on my paper. So a trick is to take your dry brush again and just wipe that off. So anything left behind there, just give it a little wipe. And now the magic part, doing the heat set. So I'm going to speed this up. I'll heat set one of them and then I'll speed it up so you can actually see what it looks like when I'm all done. So once again, start on one edge. And there you have it, my friends, a very cool background technique. Batik embossing, as well as taking your single stamp and making your very own cool background paper. Okay, it's time for our 7th inning stretch. Stretch out those fingers. Shake it. Shake it. Oh, shake it. Shake it. Okay, now we're ready to keep going. All right, you got it? Okay, so I'm going to take a piece of my black cardstock here, and I'm going to just take a piece of scrap paper, and I am going to Versamark the whole thing. We are going to make a really cool little background paper here. And the reason I am doing it on scrap paper versus an actual coffee filter is so when I put my embossing powders or glitters on my coffee filter, it doesn't stick to the Versamark. So cover up your whole piece of cardstock with your trusty dusty Versamark ink, and then the fun begins. So for this one that I'm showing you now, I'm going to be using our Cosmic embossing powders. Now, as you can see, our embossing powders beside the EP have a tiny little bit of information on there that is very important to you. Cosmic, and whether it's semi-transparent or opaque. Now, the reason you want to know that is if you're going over a design and you want to see through it, you want to use the semi-transparent. For this actual technique, it doesn't matter whether it's semi-transparent or opaque. I just picked a medley of 3 colors that I really like to use. So, I am first going to take my pineapple, and I'm going to take my little sparkle spoon, and I am just going to sprinkle some of my pineapple here. And you can just create a very organic look. You can just do straight lines across. I am going to do something a little cool, a little different. And now I am going to take my next color. We are going to use Skylight. Skylight is a very beautiful semi-transparent, semi-transparent cosmic as well. So I am going to sprinkle a little bit of my Skylight here. And now what you notice is my Skylight is not interfering with the pineapple. Since that's covered, it's not going to stick. And that is a very commonly asked question too, is, oh, well, how are you keeping the colors from mixing together? And that's because once these really fine embossing powders cover up the Versamark, it is no longer something that it could stick to. All right, so my last color, I'm going to take Satin Velvet. So finish applying all of the Satin Velvet, your last color, and then I am going to go ahead and heat set. So once again, you're heating away from you. You're starting in one position and slowly moving up your heat gun. So you could see right here, you could see the heat gun, the heat actually melting the embossing powder. And I'm not shaking my heat gun. I am not fanning it. I'm not trying to figure out where I've been and where I'm going. It's all pretty obvious. Okay, once you've done half of it, then I'm going to finish just like that. And these are all cosmic powders, and because I'm doing this on black paper, I wanted to show you what these colors look like on white paper as well. And you can see the difference of how cosmics look on a white versus a black page. And now we're going to use this as our background. So something else you could do with embossing powder is you can emboss over it. So this is going to be my base. And now I'm just simply going to take a little bit of, take my static bag, wipe over it. Now I am going to take my feather stamp, stamp into my Versamark, stamp right over my background. Now because this is now a slick surface, if you push too hard or if you move a little bit, it's going to smear. So just make sure you go really solid down single press one time. All right, and now I'm going to take my white detail embossing powder and just go ahead and sprinkle that over my feather. Give that a nice good tap. And now we're going to heat set. So this is a really cool way to make your own background papers. Depending on the different embossing powders you use, it can look as like a leather finish. If you use browns and blacks with some metallics in it, that's a really cool effect too. All right, I'm going to go ahead and heat set. Melting away from me. And when you heat on top of an embossing powder, you can overheat it. So make sure you just do one slow heat process through it, because if I sat there and kept my heat on it, it's going to start to like spread out. So make sure when you're heating, when you're layering your embossing powders like this, that you just do a really conscious one stroke of the heat gun and melt all of your embossing. Okay, so for the last technique I'm going to show you on this video, and then I'll do like 2 or more embossing, maybe even 3 more embossing powder technique videos following this one in the weeks to come. So look for part 1, part 2, part 3, who knows, it could be endless. So the next thing that I am going to do is we are going to be using a really awesome embossing powder called Magic Speckle. If you don't have this in your collection, it's definitely a must-have. You can do so many cool things with it. And I'm going to show you another layering technique. So I am going to take my Versamark pad again and my scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to go over this whole piece of cardstock just like that. And now we are going to use the Magic Speckle. Now because we have our stamped feather in the middle, I don't want to get any of my Magic Speckle on my feather. So I'm going to take my sparkle spoon and my Magic Speckle, and I am just going to go around my edges just like this. And this is a super thick powder as well, so not only is it magical, which you're going to see here in a second, but it also is super thick. So what tends to happen with some of your super thick powders is you have flyaways as you're heating it. So if that's something that you want to have more control over, you can put this in like a shoebox lid or something to catch any of those little flyaways. Since, you know, I've probably got these all over my office anyways, I'm just going to do it on my coffee filter and not really pay much attention to it. How does that sound? Okay, so a trick though when you're doing layering like we're doing here is I still have sticky embossing powder all over. So what I want to do is I want to take my, put my Magic Speckle away, and I am going to take my clear, and this is a detail clear, but you can do clear detail or you can even just do a clear embossing powder and just cover everything up. And I'm just going to use a little bit and probably discard this because the Magic Speckle is going to be contaminated with my clear when I go to shake this off. So just give it a good little tap. All right, and now we're going to heat set. And I know you see this curling up right now. When I go and attach this to a card backing, it's going to be just fine, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, so now we're gonna go and heat. So you could see my little flyaways. You can also heat this from the bottom. All right, so there is our finished product. So in this video, we walked you through your basic stamping, your batik stamping, and now some embossing. I mean, your basic embossing, batik embossing, and now some basic layering. Hey, wasn't that fun? Look at all the stuff we learned together. Well, thank you so much again for checking out Demo Donna's Technique of the Week here at Sparkle and Sprinkle's YouTube channel. If you love us, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Too bad we can't do two, huh? A thumbs up. You can leave me a comment. I love reading all the stuff that you guys write on the comment section, and I do my best to reply every day, every day. So subscribe, share, create, all that fancy stuff. I post when a video is up on our Facebook page, so you can go ahead and like us on Facebook, Sparkle and Sprinkle, and then Demo Donna at Facebook too, so that's a lot of fun. We can chat there as well. So thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next week.